Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to today's Win Science webinar, Claiming Success, Empowering Women in Science to Advocate for the Recognition They Deserve. Very important, inspiring topic, isn't it? I'm Prema Balachandran, Principal Scientist at the National Center for Natural Products Research, School of Pharmacy at the University of Mississippi. I'm also an adjunct instructor teaching biomedical entrepreneurship course there. In addition, I'm also a co-founder and chief scientific officer for the new startup Plexignal Laboratories in Oxford, Mississippi. It's my absolute honor to serve as a moderator for today's panel session. Before we dive in, let me introduce Women in Nutraceuticals. If you are here, probably you would have heard about WIN. It is a global initiative dedicated to advancing empowering women in science, business, and leadership roles with the nutraceuticals industry. WIN's Science Committee is committed to fostering mentorship, collaboration, and advocacy for women in scientific roles. Its vision is to achieve economic and social equity in the global nutraceutical industries. How do we achieve this? Through the mission of offering tools, networking, visibility, and mentoring to create an environment where women have an equal place in the leadership and evolution of global nutraceutical industry and where they can reap equally personal fulfillment, social, and economic benefits. We have four focus areas. The first one is the leadership. This is to increase the number of women serving in leadership positions. The next one is the growth. This is to help grow a number of women in science and research. The next one is investment. Expand investment opportunities for female owned businesses. And the last one, but not the least, is opportunity. Ensure better opportunities for rising female leaders. We are so proud of the growth we achieved through the last few years. And this is not possible with our amazing sponsors. We would like to thank our platinum sponsors, gold sponsor, silver sponsors, and with their support, we have grown so much. And thank you for all the support and help. Some housekeeping things. This webinar is on live, but this will be recorded and available on demand after today's session. We have two different chat boxes. One is the Q&A where you can put the question and answers in the box. And after the end of the panel, we will have 10 minutes Q&A session where the panelists will be able to answer your questions. The other one is the chat. This is more for technical issues. If you come across any technical issues, please put that in the chat box. Tracy and Karen is on the line and they will be able to help us with any technical issues. And now let's dive into our webinar. As we all know, women in science have made groundbreaking contributions in almost all the fields, yet many still face barriers to visibility, credit, and leadership opportunities. Today, we will discuss why advocacy matters, how to amplify your voice, and practical strategies for securing the recognition you rightfully deserve. Today's session is designed to spark conversation from incredible panelists who will share their insights, strategies, actionable advice, personal experiences so that we, as women in science, can break barriers, claim our achievements, and build a future where recognition is based on merit, not on gender. Now, my pleasure to welcome all our esteemed panelists. Dr. Risa Schulman, PhD, is the founder and a science and regulatory consulting firm that assists prominent and pioneering natural product companies. In her 25 years of service in the industry, she has also held leadership positions at Marks, Inc., POM Wonderful, and Soldier Vitamins. Dr. Schulman is also serving as a senior science and regulatory advisor to Kaneka Nutrients, as well as being an advisor to Investor. One of her favorite roles in serving on science advisory boards, which she has done for McCormick, Clorox, Plum Organics, and many others. An equal love is translating science for non-scientists, which she is privileged to do at many conferences, podcasts, and articles. Another particular passion is guiding female R&D professionals and entrepreneurs of all stripes, which she has done both as a mentor and as an executive coach since she was a graduate student. Welcome, Risa. Now, I would like to welcome our next panelist, Dr. Yalda Shu, PhD. She's the Director of Science and Nutrition at Now Health Group in Bloomingdale, Illinois. She oversees new ingredient evaluation, research, scientist, nutritionist, label regulatory affairs, documentation, and customer technical training. She has worked in the natural products field for 22 years, including academia. Dr. Shokooh has taught and conducted research as a university professor for years and authored around 100 publications, mostly on botanicals. Most recently, she was a full professor at the Sonoran University in Health Sciences, Tempe, Arizona. Yalda is an advisor for American Herbal Pharmacopoeia as well. She held leadership positions for a decade and was the first female in most of her roles. She volunteers at WIN and is passionate about supporting women's career growth. She serves as a coach and mentors many women, guiding them in leadership roles. Welcome, Yalda. Next, Dr. Kantha Shelke, PhD, CFS, IFT Fellow, is a principal at Corvus Blue LLC and a senior lecturer at Johns Hopkins University, where she is developing the first university course on dietary supplements safety regulation. She serves as McGill University Faculty Advisory Board and the Board of Trustees at Sonoran University. Her firm provides technical regulatory support to trade commissions, commodity boards, and international organizations. Passionate about making nutritious food accessible, she champions women led enterprise worldwide, advising some Saharan female entrepreneurs for FAO AgriFoodNet and supporting women led food and supplement ventures through global trade commissions. Welcome, Kantha. Thank you for being here. Now, let's begin our panel discussions. First, we all heard about Matilda effect. This refers to the systemic undervalue of women contributions in science. Have you experienced or observed in your career? And if so, how did you all handle it or address it? I would like to start with Risa. Risa, please share your thoughts and insights on this topic.
First of all, thank you so very much for including me on this very esteemed panel. It's really a pleasure and an honor. I was thinking about this question and I realized that in my earlier years, I'm not sure I even understood when this was happening to me. I was shy. I was the kind who put my head down, did my work right, and thought that, like as a student, you do your work, you get an A or a B or whatever, commensurate with your effort and your application. And now thinking back, I can see different things that happened, subtle things, not so subtle things, that I understand what was going on. Then I did not. And so what I would like to say is that it's important to develop that political savvy wherever you are in your career if you don't have it. Um, if it's possible, go to a place where you know you're valued. If you can, if you have the ability to choose something like that and you can see that you're in a place where you're not valued, I would say also it depends on your personality. If you're a person who's more shy and more introverted, like many of us scientists are, it may be just better for you to just try and be in places where you are valued. If you're a more feisty person, Kantha is going to tell some of her stories, and I admire her feistiness when she was early in her career. And if you're a person like that, maybe you can be a change agent, or maybe you can be a trailblazer for other women. But to understand your environment, I think, to teach yourself how to do that. I know we're going to talk later about how to gain your skills. I think is really critical to battling this Matilda effect.
Thank you, Risa. Yeah, that's very true. Like in the beginning of our careers, we may not even know that we are going through this Matilda effect. That's kind of things which put us like, and as you said, it's going to the place where you are valued. That's very, very important. That's a big decision we make in our career. Let's move to Yalda. Yalda, what do you think about this?
Yeah, thank you, Prema. That's an honor to be on this panel. And this is a very important topic. So I have definitely observed undervaluing people's contributions and achievements through my career. One typical example would be around authorship of papers, like the PI would not put the PhD students or postdoc or staff name as first author or corresponding author, where they contributed considerably. Although I think it could happen to anyone, but I would say I witnessed more for female students or staff, maybe because the PI would think, oh, they wouldn't speak up, they wouldn't confront my decision. So you would hear the PI say, oh, that's good for your experience for your future career when they're asking you to do something unpaid, or some research that you wouldn't get the proper authorship. So as far as myself, I would say that I always enjoyed advocating for others, but it took me a long time to learn how to advocate for myself. It made me uncomfortable. It wasn't easy, but you don't get what you didn't ask for. So that's what I remind myself. And I think that's a skill we need to learn. I think through the years, I became better at that. I still enjoy advocating for others more, but I definitely always try to advocate for myself too. It's not easy, but it's important, and it's something that we can learn and by practice and finding resources. One practical way to do that I wanted to mention is that if you itemize the expression by picking a specific example, that usually work better, right? If you, instead of going to your PI, say, like when you're overwhelmed and you're done and you want to leave, and go and say, I cannot work here anymore. I feel that I'm ignored. I'm invisible. I don't get the value I deserve. Before reaching that level, just focus on one example and go, okay, I feel a little bit confused about how authorship works around here, because the recent paper we had and the draft, my name is not where it should be, because I think that the amount of work I contributed or intellectual portion that I contributed is more than that person, but I'm confused why they got a better authorship placement. And I was wondering if you could clarify for me. And then they might have explanation that convince you, and they might not have. You might get the results you want, say, okay, sorry, we'll switch. You might not get the results, but still you stepped up and then you advocate for yourself. So it takes inner resources and external support for positive coping in these situations.
Yeah, thank you, Yalda. Yeah, I totally agree. These kind of conversations are very, very tough, especially when you are in the beginning of career as a postdoc, going to a new place. It's tough to have these conversations with the PI and have like get the recognition what we need. So yeah, Kantha, what do you think? Kantha, I think you are muted.
Thank you, Prema, and a special thanks to Risa and Yalda for bringing such valid points. History, just like it sounds, his story is one big data gap. From man the hunter to modern science, women's contributions have been ignored, erased, or credited to men. And at the same time, male achievements are treated as universal, and they are leaving women's stories in the margins or missing it out altogether. So those of you who are listening to us today, we are talking about the Matilda effect. Cornell University historian Margaret Ruster actually coined that to describe how women's scientific contributions are often overlooked in favor of their male counterparts. So here is real data. We are being overlooked. She named it after Matilda Joslyn Gage, a suffragist who fought for women's rights in the US and also for indigenous rights. So these gender data gaps, they shape our culture, the news, the literature, economics, and city planning. They distort our past, they misrepresent our present, and they limit our future. Of course, as a woman, a female scientist who also happens to be taller than most women and definitely many men in India, I was consistently seeing this, where it was unfortunately very difficult for them to overlook the tallest person in the classroom and sometimes the one who would actually argue for those who were being invisible. Today, if there is one thing we can do, and one thing we can walk away with to make this world a better place is to learn how to break this silence and to ensure that this invisible gender is visible, that we are heard and we are recognized. So it's time to reclaim and set the record straight. We know the Matilda effect is so systemic that we all accept it as a norm. So, how do we address it? Maybe an example will show you how. When a leading conference in nutrition and supplements, we are all, after all, women in nutraceuticals, and we are addressing our industry. So, when this conference consistently brought male speakers as motivators and as recognition of their achievements in a sector, the natural products and nutraceutical sector, that is, where women occupy and dominate the food value chain from production to processing to retailing to purchasing to using and to influencing, but are distinctly absent because they are kept out at the corporate decision making and in the profit sharing nodes of this value chain. It was time to explain to the organizers that bringing quality and value to this brofest would require engaging and showcasing the women behind this flourishing industry. It requires baby steps, but there are miles to go before the organizers actually learned about the brilliant women on whose shoulders this industry veritably stands. So instead of pointing out the disparity, because that can be very alienating, let's work strategically to change the platform. I've systematically, for example, suggested another female speaker or a leader when I'm the only person, I'm the only female on an all male panel. Invariably, the organizers cringe. Then they look at it and they go, well, we don't know anybody else. And I suggest 3 or 4 names. So help them. Help them with, as Yalda pointed out, itemize your expression. I love that. Help itemize and position this female that you're bringing in terms of quality, money, and time. What quality she brings, the amount of money, etc., implications of her presence, and the time, her wealth of knowledge, etc. So when you do that, the organizers would then work with me and I would surreptitiously change the makeup of the panel. But that doesn't end there. It's also important to it's important to complete the learning and tell the organizers to see how much better the end result is when you bring the right minds who just happen to be females and who we were not able to recognize because we've been historically blind. Thank you.
Thank you, Kantha. Yeah, thank you for sharing all your with the great examples. Yeah, the stories and experiences you have shared highlight a persistent issue in the scientific community. It's clear that advocating for recognition isn't just about personal ambition, it's about ensuring that contributions are acknowledged fairly. Hearing your experiences and strategies for addressing the Matilda effect highlights the common challenges many women in science faces in everyday life. The fact that historical biases still persist, which is very unfortunate in modern research, in grant funding, in patent or inventorship, authorship, as Yalda was mentioning, recognition is something we must actively counter. Advocacy, speaking up, and creating support networks like WIN are all essential in ensuring that women's contributions receive the acknowledgement they deserve. Let's move on to the next question on this important discussion. We all heard about the imposter syndrome. This is a behavioral health phenomenon. Even though we are in the kind of career like we think we grown up, but still we self-doubt of intellect skills and accomplishments among high-achieving individuals. It is something many of us have faced regardless of our level of experience or accomplishments. What advice would you give to women who doubt their abilities despite their proven successes? Let's start with Yalda. Yalda, what do you think?
Of course. So Prema, first of all, I would like to call it imposter fear rather than imposter syndrome, because I think it's not who you are or you were born with it. It's what happened to you and experiences that you had in your life, rather work or personal experience, family, where you grew up, everything that caused those fear in you, and it's manageable by practice and using resources. So that's why I think is I'm tending to call this imposter fear. And we doubt our abilities because we think we got them by chance. If we say, I'm lucky to have this job, I'm lucky to have these relationships with my colleagues, as long as we are implying that we're grateful, that's wonderful. Gratitude is a great trait to have. But if we imply that chance help us 100% to reach this level is not great. And then if we say constantly, we believe that it was just all chance that we are here. So you need to separate your luck from your achievements. Make a list of what you have done to deserve this win. Which of your capabilities and skills help you get here, and be vulnerable and talk about it with people you trust. And since I've been in leadership roles for so long, I would also like to have a word with supervisors that let vulnerability be okay at the workplace, be accepted. Let them share what they feel and don't judge them and say, okay, if they don't trust themselves, how would I trust them? Understand that is a common feeling. And then don't shut them off by saying, no, stop being dramatic. Don't be silly. You're great. You're enough. Listen to them and say, I hear you. That's a common feeling. Many people have it. Let's talk about it. Which meetings makes you have this fear and feeling more? Which projects make you have this feeling more? And this is the job description. You're hired based on this job description. Point me out which of the lines cause this fear in you. And so I think just talking about it with your supervisor or a mentor or a coach, that would be great. And then we can separate the reality from feelings. Maybe really there is one skill I need to work more on. Maybe really that's we are overachievers. We are straight A's. We want to be perfect in everything. That's not possible. So maybe there is something out there we need to work on, but we just internalize it and think we are not good enough. But if we talk about it and then separate reality from feelings, that really would be helpful.
Yeah. Thank you, Yalda. Very well said. Separate luck from achievement. That's a great advice. Identifying the fear, it's very, very important. So what do you think, Kantha, on this about imposter syndrome?
Yeah. You know how people, and especially as scientists, tend to be nervous, and everybody, regardless of whether you're a science or not, is often very scared of speaking in public. And what do people tell you? They go, I don't know if you've heard of it, but they say, pretend everybody in the audience is naked. And then suddenly you feel like you have much more. Well, a wise female mentor, Renee Sherman, she was in her 80s. She helped me navigate my extreme introversion. I used to avoid large gatherings where small talk dominated. I just wanted to get to the point, wanted to help someone. I wanted to make things better. And she saw that impulse in me and reframed it. She said, attend these events and find someone you can help and get going. That shift changed everything. So when you have a purpose, you're not afraid to introduce yourself, share what you do, and offer solutions. This is very important. As women, we are naturally hardwired to help others. So how do we bridge that to confidence and make it a hallmark of what you do? What Renee Sherman said really helped me. So if you feel like an imposter, when you have achieved something big, remind yourself that doubt is centuries old in the making. But what matters more is what you do next. Instead of just staying in that, oh, someone's going to find me out kind of a mindset, use your success to uplift others. Celebrate. The drive to help, to make a difference, can give you courage and momentum. And people will see, recognize your achievements, and celebrate with you. So build a support system. They say it takes a village to erase the imposter system. Surround yourself with people who recognize your worth, who advocate for you, and offer honest feedback when you need it. And don't just seek the support, be that support for others. Because when we lift each other up, we change the game. So here is my offer to those of you who are listening. For those of you accomplished in food science and supplements, here is the opportunity. Here is my way of showcasing you and lifting you up out of that imposter mindset. Look into Phi Tau Sigma, the only honor society for food science and technology, which includes supplements and nutraceuticals. Membership is by nomination only. So if you qualify, reach out to me and let's get you recognized in a society that values scientific excellence beyond nationality, beyond gender, because the scholarships, the awards, the connections, and the opportunities to shape the future of our profession, of this industry, priceless.
Thank you, Kantha, for the invitation to the Honor Society. Yeah, as you said, the scientists are nervous and always we fear about the failure. So that's the reason for the imposter syndrome, and finding someone to help and be someone to help others. So that's a great advice. What do you think, Risa, on this imposter syndrome?
So first of all, I love what both Yalda and Kantha shared about this. I agree 100% with all the points that were made. And I just want to deepen some of the things that they said by saying that, we started off with Matilda effect and being in environments that don't value and appreciate you, and maybe even toxic environments. What about the toxic environment in your head? That's also important, right? How we speak to ourselves, what we think of ourselves. It's not, it's the fear that Yalda spoke about and the childhood things that happened. But I think it's universal that people feel this way. They feel they're not good enough. And many of us are perfectionists. It's comes with the territory of being a scientist, right? Hi, I'm Risa Schulman. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I sure am. And my advice here is to work on yourself, whether it's through books, whether mentors, an executive coach, a therapist, it's through all the other examples and ideas that Yalda and Kantha gave, surrounding yourself with people who do value you, asking the questions, all of those things. Get to a point where you can forgive yourself for not knowing. Forgive yourself for not being perfect. And one of the things that really helped me was observing other women who it seemed to me were confident. And I know sometimes people present a certain way and they really still feel that imposter syndrome. But I noticed certain women who were comfortable enough to say they didn't know. And this kind of bounces off of what Yalda was saying about being vulnerable, allowing yourself to be vulnerable in the workplace. But there's that one-on-one vulnerable, and then there's the ability to be able to, even in a more public context, let's say a meeting of some kind, say, I don't know about that topic. But here's what I'm going to do to find out about it, educate myself about it, or, bring something back to the team, help the team understand it. Just that ability to be able to allow yourself to say, you're right, I should have done that, and I didn't think of it. I'm going to get right on that. When I saw that, I saw two things. I saw, one, that person has confidence to say that something that they don't know, not to have to be perfect and present that they're all knowing and all thought of everything. Yep, right, on it. I got it. I thought of that, blah, blah, But second, it shows an emotional maturity and an ability to communicate, which I think, and professionally, if I'm the one in the leadership position and I'm leading a team, professionally, that is much more valuable than, I knew it all and I got it all down and I did it perfectly. Much more valuable. It also makes you a much more relatable person, an approachable person, and someone that people want to have on the team, because you're normal. You're human. We're all human. We all want to know that we have permission to be human, to be imperfect, and to have the confidence that we can get to the next level when we don't, when we don't have what we needed for that meeting or whatever it is. So I just wanted to, actually, I think I'll wait for the next question. We're going to go to a question about
You are
strategy.
exactly right, Risa. Yeah, you are exactly right. Because many times we don't know what we don't know. That's a problem, to get rid of the toxic environment, that's very, very important to overcome this imposter syndrome. What we learn from this discussion is something even the more accomplished professionals experience this. That's very, very unfortunate. Using the power of self-reflection, mentorship, owning our own achievements, we can overcome this barrier. If we don't recognize our own value, how can we expect others do? It's critical to remind ourselves that we earned our seats on the table and raise our voice when we need to, and that self doubt should never define our worth. Building confidence is a journey, and it's reassuring to know that we are not alone in these feelings. Thank you. Let's move on to the next question. This is about the strategies. What strategies can women use to evaluate their skills, contributions, and impact and effectively communicate them to colleagues, managers, and potential employers? Many times we sit in the interviews or maybe on this side of the table or other side of the table. So, how do we communicate and implement these strategies? Let's start with Kantha. What do you think, Kantha?
Thank you. You know, it's very important to note that this conversation that we're having is not about competing, but it's about changing how women are included and how they can be given a fair chance at making this world a better place for everyone. And so the question really is about shifting the focus, changing the system, not changing the women. So my stance is, instead of teaching women to be more assertive, to network better, to communicate differently, what if we focused on changing the system itself, moving from predatory and exploitative practices to equitable ones? We already know how to navigate challenges, right? How many of you have not used it when you were a teenager to get an extra time out late in the night or to get back in after doing what you did that you were not supposed to do? Think about those skills. Think about the strategies you use with your families, your workplaces, and communities to get what you wanted. Use those now to get your female colleagues to get what they deserve. Calling out sexism directly is not the way to go about it, because that makes you aggressive and it can be alienating. And the people who listen to it tend to then put their flaps down and they go deaf. But if you reshape the conversation and you reshape the system itself, that's how you can make the real change. So I've learned that the best way to drive progress is not by fighting the old, but by building something better. So you provide an inclusive approach that leads to a better outcome, which is superior. For example, take the glaring absence of women in panels, programs, and award recognitions. Instead of pointing it out, fix it. So here's one example. When I discovered that scientific societies systematically excluded women from fellowship opportunities because they had required continuous presence for 10 to 20 years. So it effectively disqualified those who took time off for caregiving. So I worked with organizers to change that. The American Chemical Society started first, then the American Society for Nutrition, and the Institute of Food Technologists. The results are clear, and you can now see the growing number of women fellows. And I was one of the first, because I had to take a break at one time, but I am now a fellow of the IFT, and what we can do and go beyond. This is what we need to do. So our natural and supplement sector, natural food and supplement sector, is especially a stark example of this imbalance. Women dominate the entire food chain, but they are glaringly absent from corporate decision-making and profit sharing and societal recognition. This is not just unfair. It is a failure. So time and time again, we've seen industries, suffer when leadership is determined by gender than by ability. So let's help. And I admire WIN for what it's doing. But let's help WIN get women into the positions they deserve. Because when women are shut out of critical decisions and pushed into roles that are so-called feminine, we all lose. So the solution is not to change women. It is to change the system. And let's start it now.
That's a great advice. Changing the system is a very important at this moment. So what do you think, Risa, on this? What strategies would you use or tools would you use?
So I'm going to say something that probably everyone's heard before, but then I'm going to offer my routes to get there, which is know your strengths and know your weaknesses. Or that's some other thing, like know your weaknesses, but more importantly, know your strengths. Either of those. So how do we get to learn our strengths? We already had a couple of different suggestions, mostly surrounding having supervisors, and hopefully you're lucky enough to have a supervisor who is forthcoming with such things and is has the ability to nurture people in that way. And if not, or even in addition to, one place that I turned was books. So we scientists love to find what we need in books. So I wanted to recommend one specifically, which is called Career Renewal, and it's by Stephen Rosen and Celia Paul. It's been around for a long time, and it's specifically targeted for scientists and technical professionals, which is one of the reasons why I chose it off the shelf of all kinds of such books like What Color is Your Parachute, etc. But it gives you exercises, very specific exercises to do to rate yourself in different areas of different kinds of aptitudes, whether it's even technical knowledge, social knowledge, political savvy, et cetera, all the different areas that are important for a professional woman. And to create, to kind of rack your brain, create little vignettes. Oh yeah, this time I was assertive in this way, or this time, whatever. It's also great prep for interviews. It ends up doubling for that. And you end up with this beautiful grid of data, which we all love, right? And then you can start to discern patterns about yourself and to recognize and rate. These are areas I'm great in. These are areas I'm not great in. And one of the things I really appreciated and loved about what they did, they said, rate the areas that you're great in that you think you can improve, and the areas that you're not great in that in a million years, you're going to move the needle this much, and let them go. Recognize that those are not your areas, and then communicate again, about, oh, this is not my thing, but here's how I handle. This is my workaround. This is my, this is my lifeline. This is how I deal with that. If you know all of those things, your strengths, your weaknesses that you're never going to be able to get anywhere with, and your weaknesses that you're working on, and how you're working on, then you can advocate for yourself. You can promote yourself. You can capture those vignettes as they happen and recognize that this is a way you can promote yourself. So I love this book. I actually have went through it 3 times in my early career. Every time I was at a crossroads, or if I had been laid off and I had time, I used that. I thought it was very precious. Those kinds of times are very precious. People sometimes get depressed, etc. I always looked at them as, wow, the world's my playground again. What am I going to do differently? How can I learn more, etc.? And that's what I spent my time doing, because it takes time to go through these books. And I loved it. And I kept them. And every time I did it again, I looked back and I saw how much I had learned about myself, what I knew, what I couldn't even pick up about myself back then because I wasn't mature enough or didn't understand myself enough. So that's one book. And I just want to mention quickly 2 others. One is called Self-Promotion for Introverts by Nancy Ankowitz. This was breakthrough for me. It's still has all my tabs in it. And then the last one, and this is for entrepreneurs. I transferred out of corporate at a certain point about midway through my career and started my own business, which was huge. I did not have an MBA. I didn't know what I was doing. I cried every day, but I pushed through, and I read a lot of different books. And one of the ones that I found really very inspiring was one called Soloing, by Harriet Rubin, Realizing Your Life's Ambition. So I have always found books to really be expanding and inspiring and helpful, among the other kind of resources that you can use to grow yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Risa, for a recommendation of these books, which can identifying our strength as well as the weakness. So it's Yalda, what do you think about this? What strategies would you use?
Yeah, I loved what Risa mentioned, and then the books that she suggested. I think that's a great approach, to read the books and then learn more about yourself. And I think, as also was brought up before, we can use other resources. We can talk with a mentor if we have it, we can find one, or a career coach. That's so important to have a career coach, to find one. And if not, we can ask for it, and then we could try to find other resources. There are so many free resources out there. on YouTube and everywhere, but it just like you want to look for it and use the words like use the word assertiveness in research and science, self-awareness, resilience, and try to find resources based on that. And ask for feedback and set boundaries for that, because just people can just give feedback in a mean way that you shut off, and then you feel that you cannot continue anymore. So set boundaries when you're asking for feedback. And working in academia for years and then waiting every quarter semester to get to see the student assessments, at first it was terrifying, and just what like 100 people were assess you and tell what you think, and they're like all age different groups, and then they have different opinions, and then some of them might be upset with you because of their grades, and then every quarter waiting for that was terrifying. But that helped me through the years to get so many good feedback, to work on myself and learn from my mistakes, and get so many kind words and love that helped me move on. And I don't take things feedback personally anymore because of that experience working in academia. And come out of your comfort zone. I know it's easier to say than doing that. It's not easy, but taking from someone that have done it so many times in my life, started from zero, like travel world, working in different countries, the states, towns, lived in I always say my husband and I, the house live now, it's our 17th house we live together. This is how many times we moved. And just it makes you stronger, more resilient, and then more compassionate toward other people. Like the more life experience you have, it helps you help others better because you just understand them. Oh, I know how it feels being lonely. I know how it feels to just work in environment you don't know anyone. I know how it feels you just go somewhere you can speak their language. I know how it feels. So it just makes you more compassionate and makes you more successful. Just it's not easy. It's not easy, but just pain. I think grow comes with some pain. Is that grow pain or whatever it's called.
Yeah, thank you, Yalda. The main key takeaways from this discussion is having a mentor or career coach. This is going to be very helpful in our journey. And also, it's always good to have some kind of advice from professionals like you who can lead us to the leadership roles. Let's move on to the next question. They say your network is your net worth. How can women in science leverage their relationships and influence to advocate for themselves effectively? Let's start with Risa this time. So, what do you think, Risa, on this? How do you think your network is your net worth?
Oh, wow. Everywhere I've gotten in my life after a certain point has been because of the people that I knew and who end up becoming dear friends, which is just an added bonus. I want to introduce a term that I heard from somewhere along the way, which I thought was so wise, and it's called career hygiene. I was taught, probably by a career coach, that even if you're not looking for a job, even if you're very happy in your job, it's very important to always be doing career hygiene, to be looking at what else is out there, what are people getting paid, what does that corporate environment look like, or whatever environment you're working in, academic environment. Am I getting things on my resume that are going to get me noticed? What are the new trends, et cetera? What are new companies out there? And who do I know? Who do I know? Who is my network outside of my place of employment? And who knows me outside of my place of employment? How do they know me? Do I write articles? Do I speak? Am I on committees of trade organizations, et cetera? So that, I think, early in my career was something very important for me to recognize. Be active even when you're happy where you are. And part of that is your network. And they are going to, I am so grateful. I just have to say, I am so grateful. I have people in my network who have known me since the beginning. Some of them were people who we were both junior at the time. We were both the new hires, our first job out of school, etc. And I can still pick up the phone and call them. There's something so beautiful about someone who knows where you've been and has seen you rise through the ranks, who's been there to celebrate, who's been there, maybe even went out of your life and came back in your life. Maybe you came back together a second time to work together at a different company. That happens a lot. People call because they say, "Oh yeah, I worked with this one at company. I want them on this team with me now over here," and they'll offer you a job. It's a very beautiful part of your professional life. So part of my net worth, I guess that's part of my net worth. It's part of your happiness in your job, your professional world. In the natural products industry, I love that we use this word, the ecosystem. A lot of us use this. I have some background in that area. That's part of my science training is in ecosystems. And so when it was applied to this, at first I was like, oh, that's a weird use of that word. But now I love it because it really is just like the food web, the food chain, the food web for the animals. And we're not calling ourselves animals. I'm saying in a natural, beautiful way of people higher on the chain, helping people lower on the chain, people this way, symbiotic relationships, etc. It really is invaluable. And if it's hard for you, which is hard for all of us at the beginning, it is very hard. I used to do, the cold calling before there was any internet, before there was any LinkedIn, before there was any of that stuff. It was murder. It was torture. But just get started. And you have WIN. We all have WIN, and other organizations also as a way. Take advantage of these programs. When I was in the beginning, I was too shy to take advantage of even what was there. Just gun it.
Yeah. Risa,
Grit your
yeah,
teeth and gun it. There's so many of us. I mean, probably you could get that any one of us on this call would talk to at a conference. We
yeah,
love it. We love it. We want to pay it forward. And it's flattering. It's flattering to anyone. I mean, I never believed it when people would say that, but now being in the position of people approaching me, believe me, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. And we all want to help each other. So, if you feel shy, it won't even take that much to work up your courage. Reach out to people. Everyone wants to help each other. So I'm going to stop there.
Thank you, Risa. Yeah, career awareness is very, very important and making ourselves visible. What do you think, Yalda, on this?
Very well said, Risa. I love what you said. And it's so enjoyable to have allies. I love that I know people that I admire them. I trust them. I like them. And I can just pick up the phone and call them or send an email, pick their brain. Having allies at work help you evaluate your work constantly and non-officially. Is not maritime, is not a form to check on the different things that you've done. It's just unofficially and constantly. An ally would be happy for your win, but is open to give you constructive feedback rather than just talking behind your back. It gives you confidence by bringing up new ideas and highlighting the areas of opportunity for you. And doing business in a globalized world, I don't see it as even possible without having connections around the world. I really enjoyed having allies, having people I can trust, mentors, and I met a lot of them out of workplace, just at where I volunteer. I love volunteering. I've been volunteering for so many associations for so long for different causes. And my favorite, when Women in Nutraceuticals, when I heard about it, I just jumped in. I volunteered that co-chair of the science committee for some time. And then I really enjoy and I meet people that I love, and we have mutual causes to fight for, and then that we care for. And then you might meet them. I'm part of association in a small town that we live with, just barely have 1,000 people. It's just there are lots of opportunity to volunteer and then meet new people, learn from them, and I think it's very important to have that, and it just really make you happy, and makes you happy, and also give you confidence. That's an asset to have for sure.
Thank you, Yalda. WIN is a great platform, not only for making connection, also for creating the opportunities. So what do you think, Kantha?
I'm just overwhelmed with this group, just overwhelmed. How can you not be proud of being as part of this network? But it is true. You are judged by the company you keep. So it's important to be intentional who you collaborate with and making sure that every partnership that you have creates value, but for everybody involved. It cannot be inequity, there can be no inequity there. So to keep the momentum going, it's really important to lift others as you are also rising so that everybody gets to win. And when you see an injustice, speaking up about it is important, but acting on it is even more important. I firmly believe that when you see something, it is okay to say something, but it is much smarter to do something about it. So, how can women in science, engage their relationships and influences, to advocate for themselves effectively? Find others with two priceless skills and you develop them yourself. The two priceless skills for advocating for women and leveraging relationships is effective communication and strategic communication. Being heard and understood is critical. That's not just in politics, but also in science and industry. So when you see resistance and you see indifference, that's inevitable, but be persistent. Communicate your values, your ideas, and your vision with clarity. Make it so clear, so unambiguous that you don't get sidelined. So, one technique I teach my students is use if then arguments. So, you're highlighting the consequences of what they are doing, of excluding women. And you can emphasize with another technique I teach, QMT. Any of you in the audience, my students, you know about it: quality, money, and time. Remember, Yalda talked about itemize your expression, but you can also showcase the tangible value of women's contributions in science by talking about the quality they bring, the money implications, and time implications, because that's the currency, that's the language that the rest of the world understands. Standing by the truth, even when the imposter system creeps in, is a form of resistance. But your impact can be real. So don't let your self doubt hold you back. Stand tall, own your voice, let your authenticity shine. The world needs your perspective. And let this win the event at Expo West, at Supply Side, at other events. Let this be your catalyst. And do reach out to me and to others on this panel. We are here to help you be seen and recognized. Bring a business card, follow up with me, connect on LinkedIn, and let's make our village, our sisterhood, truly worthwhile. Thank you.
That's a great advice, and thank you for the invitation. Now it's time to take some questions from the audience. We have lots of interesting questions. The one is, what is the best way to go about changing the system when one observes sexism but may not have built the connections platform to influence decision makers at large organizations? So any one of you can take this question because this can be applicable to any of you. So
I can chime in a little bit. So I think focus on the outcome focus on the process rather than just outcome. If you are being assertive and ask for something, you may get it, you may not get it. But if you didn't get the answer, if you didn't see the change, it doesn't mean that change is not happening in the back. And then people are thinking, oh, maybe that's the thing. Two people mentioned that. So it's a process. So when you're asking, when you're assertive, you're speaking up, there is a process that you've done, and outcome, it could go either way, but still you did the process part. So process is important as much as the outcome is important. And believe me, if you mention something once, there's someone else somewhere that mentioned it twice, and people think, oh, I heard it twice, maybe I'll look into that. Maybe you were doing something wrong, or we can do it differently. But again, if you don't get what you didn't ask for.
So true, Yalda.
yeah.
or, you know, persistence is such a big key over here. And persistence is a very, very important part of it, particularly if you're trying to build a critical mass. So the women who persist, who want to build a critical mass, stay brilliantly, unapologetically difficult. So that's how we lift up the female tribe.
That's right. The next question is, without a traditional academic background, how can professionals like myself effectively demonstrate that our achievements and continuous learning makes us just as capable and valuable in the regulatory field?
Regulations, quality, money, time. Talk about the quality of your work, but frame it in the context of how much money you've saved the enterprise, or how quickly you did it, or how you averted something. Any of those in the context of money and time frames it very quickly so that now it is tangible. They can measure it, they can gauge it and compare it to others, and they see that you are in regulation, but you are also pretty good at communicating it. And that's an important part. Every regulator must know, or those who are in the regulations field must understand how to communicate good news and bad.
Yeah, that's very true. We have another question from probably from a young scientist. What advice do you have for women new to the field who may be getting pushback from both because they are female and young? Yeah, that's a question. So, what advice do you have for the women who have the pushback because they are female and young?
Everyone is young at some point or the other. And it's so sad that not everybody is a female. We have an advantage. We can do a lot of things. So if you're being pushed back on the basis of your gender, it's very important to define the job in terms of what is required. What is the job description? What does it require you to do? And to very clearly establish that you can meet those requirements and therefore your gender does not apply. Risa, Yalda?
Yeah, so I can also add that if you're looking for a job, then like try and then make connections, volunteer at associations. That's, I think I learned a lot and I could do great connections through associations. Volunteer somewhere, know people that they know your real you rather than just what's on resume and a couple of pages of paper. Is just they know your capability firsthand, and then that can help you get jobs. But if you are in jobs and you have a job and you want to just grow, again, connections, volunteering, and using resources. Like as we mentioned, you want something more, you want a promotion, and it's very hard. First, acknowledge that it's hard. Let's all of us acknowledge these type of discussions are hard. It's not easy. It's not that we were born and then they say, okay, I'm gonna ask for it. We learn in a hard way. So it's hard. Acknowledge that it's not easy, and then itemize your expression. Ask for one thing. I say, I did this work for 6 years now, and I have these skills. I learned this more. What are the opportunities for growth here? I'm just wondering, what are the opportunities? Don't be worried about, okay, they think I'm thinking about moving out of this company, quitting my job, or like asking for more. Again, that's the outcome, but the process is important. You just try and ask for it, and then you don't get what you didn't ask for.
Yeah. What an inspiring, insightful discussion. Thank you to all our panelists for sharing their experiences, strategies, and wisdom, and to our attendees for engaging in this important conversation. If there is one key takeaway from today, it is this: you have the power to advocate for yourself and others, own your achievements, seek out mentors, and never shy away from claiming your success. The path to recognition is not always easy, but by amplifying our voices, lifting each other's up, and persistently advocating for equity, we can reshape the landscape of women in science. Let's continue this conversation, not end today. Connect with Win, engage in mentorship, and take actionable steps towards a future where every woman in science is valued and celebrated. We invite you to all become a members of Win and take advantage of all this networking. Remember, Your work matters, your voice matters, and your success matters. Thank you all. Thank you for the panelists and the Win for this opportunity.
Thank you.